Hey everybody, I hope everybody is doing well. Happy winter, happy new year. Today we're going to be preparing a broccoli stir fry. So in case you've never met me before, again, my name is Alyssa. I work for Feeding Westchester, and I teach a program called Just Say Yes to Fruits and Vegetables. We go through all different topics. Today we'll be discussing the nutrition facts label. We discuss My Plate and healthy eating. We discuss fruits and vegetables and how many servings we should be getting. I'm actually turning off my phone, so in case you have questions, please read them to me, or somebody read them to me, because I am getting feedback and I don't know why. Sorry about that. I can't hear myself talk. So we're going to be discussing the nutrition facts label. It's voiced by choice in here always. However, it's so wonderful when you do participate. We get so much more out of class. We entertain each other a little bit. You remember information. So it's really great all around. Of course, you can participate through the chat box. Somebody will tell me if you are participating in the chat box, and I'll answer any questions you have to the best of my ability. Usually I get started by talking about the topic at hand, but because we are doing a hot recipe today in my very nifty new skillet, and it takes a little while to cook, we'll start with the recipe and sort of weaving in our topic as we go along. Has anybody ever prepared anything like this before? It's a broccoli stir fry. It's made with oil, garlic, broccoli, carrots, a bell pepper, onion, and lemon juice. Sound like something that you might like? And we'll talk about different ways that you might make this your own. Okay, so you can see all the veggies that we'll be using here are bell pepper, our onion, our fruit, our lemon, our garlic, our carrots, and here we have our broccoli, which I prepared before we got started today. So the first thing that I'll do, it says, and by the way, if I were there with you, I'd have my gloves on, I'd have my hair back, all those safety precautions that we always want to take when we are preparing food for others. Unfortunately, you will not be trying this from me today. However, I would love for you to make this on your own. But I'll leave my gloves off and my hair down since you're there and I'm here. Okay, so it says in a large frying pan, add the oil and garlic. So what I need to do first, I should have had my gloves on actually, because I am going to be preparing garlic. So whoever is around me for the rest of the day is going to have to smell my garlicky hands. Okay, so I have my 2 garlic cloves. Actually, I already put these on the side just for a visual. I actually rinsed these before we got started. And can anyone think of a trick to get off this skin on our garlic clove? So what I like to do is I either like to just slam down my palm or take the side of something. We could use a spoon if we don't want to risk hurting ourselves, and we just slam down and the skin will practically fall off. And I'll do that twice. And there we go. Our skin is off and we don't have to worry too much about peeling it. So for anyone who has spent the time peeling before, you will appreciate this little trick if you didn't already know it. Okay, So what I need to do is, it says to use minced garlic cloves. Of course, you could just chop them up with a knife, or if you have a garlic crusher, those are also great. However, you see fit. So what I like to do is I'm just gonna hold these 2 garlic cloves together so I can work a little faster, and just slice them up really quick and turn them the other direction right after. Get them as tiny as I can. Just keep turning it. Okay. So then I'm gonna add this right to the pan right after I add my olive oil. It doesn't have to be olive oil, whatever you have on hand. This just happens to be what I have on hand. Olive oil does really have so many heart healthy benefits. So if you happen to have it on hand, that's also great. Okay. So what I need is 2 teaspoons of oil. Is anybody here who joins me in person at our events? I hope so. Okay, so as you can see, we're steamy hot, or I think that you can see. I'm gonna actually turn down my heat a little bit. Okay. And 1, 2. Okay, so now here it's starting to sizzle a little bit. I am adding my garlic. And so it says to cook it for 2 minutes on high heat. Can you imagine the aroma that I'm smelling right now? So this has been a really popular dish that I've been sharing all around Westchester recently. Can anyone guess why I might want to choose this recipe? So, broccoli is something that, broccoli and carrots and onions, these ground and root vegetables are something that you will commonly find this time of year readily, easily, and also often you'll even find it on sale. There's such a great abundance of these veggies during the winter time. So we want to look to eat things as much as possible that are in season, right? By eating things that are in season that we could buy locally, we'll often find that there's such a great abundance of it, and we'll be able to get a better price. That being said, there is such an abundance of it. In other times, we'll go into more detail as we have before, but when you have such a great abundance of something in the local markets, those local grocery stores that they're on sale, what's a good idea of something that you might do? Any ideas? I don't have my chat box, so in case anyone wants to just call out or. So what you might want to do is buy them in bulk. Something like broccoli and carrots, you would need to actually quickly cook it by what's called blanching it, and then you could cut it up and freeze it so that you would have it for all year long. So you just really got a great vegetable that you can use all year long at a great price. So now it says you want to add your broccoli, your carrots, and a half a cup of water. So it says to use 3 cups of broccoli. I'm just chopping up my broccoli, adding it as I go. Let's see. And turn down the heat a little bit. a little bit more difficult to gauge the heat when you're cooking in a skillet, but that's okay. That's what the adjustment button is for. Okay. So I hope that you can see somewhat what I'm doing. It's very simple. Just I pulled apart the broccoli florets, cut away the bulk of the stem before we got started, and then I'm just cutting up the tree tops. So you know, we just have our little broccoli trees. Broccoli is such, it's amazing how even little kids really love broccoli. It's really the one veggie that my kids will almost never turn away. I think that they love the fact that it looks like a little tree. So it says also to add the carrots. So you don't need to even, you could just wash and scrub your carrots. I did peel them today. But it's not necessary. So I'm just slicing them in little rounds. We'll add them in. So it's good to use 2 carrots. And then I'll add my water as well. So even when this recipe is all completed, the veggies will still be pretty crisp, which is something that I love about this recipe. When we don't overcook our veggies, what's so wonderful about that? We don't cook out all those wonderful vitamins and minerals. So if you're boiling veggies, you really you may lose a lot of the vitamins and minerals in the water. So especially if you're not eating it like as a soup, you're not eating that broth that the veggies are cooked in. So we just want to be mindful of that, not to overcook things too much. Look for things like these stir fries where it's not even meant to be cooked too much. So I have my half a cup of water right here. This is a little 4-ounce container. And it says to cook for 3 minutes, stirring often. Okay. And so in the meantime, while I'm waiting, it says the next step is to add the pepper and onion. So I have my pepper right here. A little trick that I've shown you guys a couple of times, probably more in person, is if you don't have a knife handy, or if you feel like not using the knife, something that you could do is just press around the top and pull out the stem. There we go. Nice in hand. That's it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice my bell pepper in half. Let me move this in case you can't see. And I'm just going to slice long, skinny strips going all the way across both sides. So I turn it on to its more flat side so that I have a more steady surface. Right. Let me just turn it the other way. And I will add my peppers in. And then we'll cut up the other side to the same. What do you think so far? Do you think that this is something that looks pretty easy to prepare, something that you feel like you might do on your own time?
We have some comments in the chat, and yes, we had someone asking if a garlic mincer is better to have a metal one or a plastic one. They private chatted me, so I put it in the public chat.
Thank you. I would say that it's all preference. I imagine that the metal one might be a little more efficient, but I haven't really compared the results. So whichever is best for you. I think I mostly used metal mincers.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to add in that part of the onion that I already chopped, and I'll chop the rest of it in front of you. I just peeled off the skin of the onion before we got started today, and I cut it in half, chopped up half. And so simple, we're gonna really just chop it up the same exact way that we chopped up the peppers, just turning it on its flat side, slicing, keeping my fingers to the side of the knife, not over the knife, ensuring that we are safe and we don't cut ourselves, turning the onion the other way, and then we're just gonna get little slices, little chunks.
I have a question about pre-preparing things. Let's say that you want to do something like earlier on in the day or the night before. Do the materials that you use, like the fruits and the vegetables, lose their potency or anything if they sit in a tight container overnight in the fridge chopped?
Yeah, no, I mean, overnight is fine. Earlier in the day is fine. I just wouldn't leave it too many days. I would leave it maybe a maximum of 2 days. Once we cut the fruit or vegetable, they start to lose some of their nutrients once they hit the air. But you know, you won't lose all the nutrients or nearly all the nutrients. It would just be a small amount that you would lose. It won't really change the flavor. And if it makes it easier for you to prepare, if it makes it more likely for you to prepare, if it encourages you to eat more fruits and vegetables, 100% prepare it in advance. Because I know for me, sometimes I need to do that. Actually, today, I had a work event before this, so I knew that I needed to prep everything in advance. I cut up some of the things that you saw were prepped much earlier this morning, and put it, sealed in a container. They're still perfectly fine. Okay, so it says to cook 5 minutes, and continuing to stir often. And just at the very end, what we're going to do is we're going to add our lemon. So I'm just going to get the lemon ready. It says to use 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So typically each quarter, so I'm going to cut the lemon in half and then cut each of those halves in half, so in quarters. And so typically each quarter of a lemon gives you about a tablespoon of lemon juice. Okay. Did I answer everybody's questions that were asked?
We had a question about adding more olive oil if the pan gets dry as you are stirring, or maybe some other, like the lemon, if you know.
It's a preference. I prefer for my veggie. I mean, I found with this particular recipe, this is really the right amount of olive oil. But if you prefer your veggies to have a little bit more of that olive oil flavor, then absolutely you could add a little bit more olive oil.
And I
but
wanted to ask you about the pan. I think it also depends on people's pans, right? Because
yeah,
it could mean a little bit more if your pan is like a different coating on it or a different temperature or like that makes a difference, correct? Just a little?
yeah, absolutely. So all of those things taken into consideration. We don't want to burn the pan.
Or the veggies, like you don't want to burn the veggies either. I mean, some
Yeah,
people like burnt veggies, but
yeah, and it's all preference. I like mine to be a little more crispy, but not burnt. And yeah, again, we don't want to ruin the pan. I would suggest absolutely just like maybe turning down the heat at that point if you notice it's really starting to dry up. But yeah, and if it's really like starting to get the pan brown, then I would absolutely add a little bit more olive oil. So we're about all complete. I'm gonna turn off my heat and I'll squeeze my lemon.
and people can feel free to unmute and ask questions also because we're a small group and that's possible. So if you want to chime in, people have been chatting or private chatting as well. Somebody was asking about substitutes. Let's say you don't have a certain type of pepper or a certain type of, like, let's say you ran out of broccoli. Is there something else comparable that you could add?
Absolutely. So you can use your own best judgment, or something that I would recommend might be cauliflower would be a really great substitute in this dish. You could probably mix in some like more bitter greens, I would think. I would imagine that even something like kale would be really great in here. Does anyone else have any suggestions?
Quinoa sounds lovely.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about next. Not necessarily as a substitution, but as an addition. I mean, if we don't have one of these veggies available, that's fine. We can carry on and make this dish anyway. And then add something else to it. But let me bring up the dish to you so you can see what it looks like all finished. So as you can see, all the colors are still very vibrant. Crisp. So just so you have an idea of when you cook it, you shouldn't necessarily be looking for it to be super soft or like losing its vibrance. That doesn't indicate that it's any more finished. So like I said, I wanted to talk a little bit about things that we could add to this to make it part of a complete meal.
Before we go on that, we had a question in the chat. How long should you fry the vegetables for?
Okay, so it's actually the first step requires 2 minutes, which is adding the oil and cooking the garlic. So we want to cook that for 2 minutes. And then we want to cook our broccoli and carrots for 3 minutes, starting off in with the water. So after those 3 minutes, so we're up to the 5 minute mark so far. At that point, we want to add our pepper and our onion and cook it for another 5 minutes. So we're up to 10 minutes. And then we want to remove it from the heat. So it really should only take about 10 minutes total. And we toss it with lemon juice and a little bit of salt. So it really shouldn't take more than about 10 to 12 minutes to cook.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's the person said thank you in the chat. And somebody said that you could also use flaked almonds instead of quinoa.
Absolutely, or maybe a combination. So yeah, thank you so much for giving that suggestion, because it brings us right back to what can we add to this to make it part of a complete meal, and what do I mean by a complete meal? What would a complete meal entail? So when I think of a complete meal, I want to do my best to have a fruit, a vegetable, a grain, a dairy, and a protein, right? So right now, what do we have? We have our fruits and vegetables. We have our bell pepper as our fruit, and we have our carrots, our broccoli, our onion as our veggies. We're missing a bunch of things. We're missing our grain, we're missing our dairy, we're missing our protein. Our protein doesn't have to be an animal source, but it can. Anyone have any suggestions? So if you're looking to keep this a vegetarian dish, we can add in some nuts, slivered almonds like somebody suggested. That would count as our protein source. Maybe we might even want to add in some beans. Those are a great source of protein. And both these items that I mentioned also are very high in fiber, which helps to improve our digestion. It also helps to fill us up and keep us full longer. The almonds are actually high in healthy fats. So that's another element of them aside from their protein content and their fiber content that helps to keep us full for a long time.
So we have more suggestions that people private chatted that I put into the public chat. Somebody said if you don't want to do almonds, you could roast the cashew nuts in the mix, or you could do tofu or soy.
Yes, yeah, that would be really delicious. So cashews, tofu, soy, slivered almonds, I love it. All really great suggestions. And the cashews really are a nice and common combination that you see with broccoli. I know that like when I've gone out to like a Chinese food restaurant, for instance, they're often adding cashews to their broccoli dishes. And actually another version of this recipe that I saw on our Just Say Yes to Fruits and Vegetables website, it essentially has this exact recipe. However, it tells you to use soy sauce instead of the lemon juice, which would definitely give it a different flavor, more of that Asian flavor. So in case you're interested in using the same fruits and veggies with it and creating a completely different flavor. Any other ideas? So we have ideas for our protein. So we have our fruit, our vegetable, our protein. What about a grain and a dairy?
Well, you did mention the quinoa before, right?
Yeah, so I brought all different ideas for grain sources that I might use. Quinoa is a really excellent choice. There's all different varieties of quinoa. This happens to be a red quinoa. And for those who follow maybe a gluten-free diet for any reason, this is something that's gluten-free, so you don't have to worry about that. You may already know that, but it's really important to be aware of those different grains that you can be incorporating that are whole grains. And yeah, you don't have to worry about only having processed foods as somebody that may not be able to have gluten. There are really great grains out there. And so this is just one example. And the other wonderful thing about quinoa is that it's high in protein. So we're adding in another protein source. Not only is it high in protein, so for just a quarter cup, this is 6 grams of protein. It's actually complete protein. So it's equivalent to like having an animal source of protein, as was called all the essential amino acids. Another couple of ideas I have here, we have a brown rice pasta. I found through trial and error that I prefer, and the reason I say this is because so many times I hear, I don't like whole wheat pasta, and there are individuals who are totally fine with it, but in case you don't, this is a really great option of a pasta that's high in fiber, that's not highly processed, and it's also high in protein. So this is a brown rice pasta. One thing I recommend though, if you are ever going to prepare brown rice pasta, is do not cook it 1 minute over the amount of suggested time. Always have it al dente, or else it really starts to stick together in an unpleasant way. Another suggestion, maybe orzo. I have a whole wheat couscous here. And last two ideas would be a red lentil pasta, again, an item that's very high in protein. This is actually 15 grams of protein for 3/4 of a cup, so very, very high in protein.
Awesome. So we have some suggestions in the chat, either chickpea pasta or chickpeas themselves, sesame seed or flax seed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. These are all really, really great ideas. And then the one item that we still haven't considered is a dairy. If we really want to come full circle and incorporate all 5 of those items that we suggest incorporating into complete meal. So
somebody said to sprinkle cheese on top. They keep private chatting, I guess, instead of public chatting. So I'm just gonna splurt it out.
Yeah, yeah, whichever cheese you most desire. Anyone have any suggested types of cheese? We want to have a low-fat cheese if possible. What kind of flavor do you? So when I know the other day said, oh, a shredded cheddar would be great. I agree. That would probably be really great. Anybody, any other ideas?
Somebody texted mozzarella.
Yeah, absolutely. Great ideas, and you can absolutely find those in low-fat varieties. Okay. Any other questions or comments before we move on to talking about the nutrition facts label a little bit more? Okay, so here we go. So imagine you're at the grocery store and you're looking at the food on the shelves. What information are you looking for? What would you like to know? Anybody care to share what you might be looking for when you're in the grocery store looking at those labels?
Someone said fat content.
Yeah, that's definitely an important thing to look for, because we want to see if it's high or low, and we want to think about where that fat is coming from, and taking into consideration if it's high, is it a healthy fat and something that we really should be eating that'll help to keep us feel full longer, and is it worth the calories that thing that might be high in fat is. So for instance, the higher in fat, that means the higher in calorie content. So if something, for instance, is 9 grams of fat, that means there's 9 calories per gram of fat. Here's just like a quick little nutrition lesson. You would multiply 9 times 9, you would get about 81 calories for that particular item in the serving size. So is it something that's a really healthy fat? Do you want to take into consideration? Anything else?
Someone else said sodium or like salt content.
Absolutely, that's a really, really important thing to take into consideration. They're all, they're all really important to take into consideration. Yes, especially for those who have to limit their sodium. It's really important to pay close attention to the sodium content. Individuals who have high blood pressure might be told to limit their sodium if you retain fluid more easily. reasons like this, you may be told to limit your sodium. And overall, it's just great for all of us to not take too little sodium, but to definitely limit our sodium. It's a lot more rare to not have enough sodium, especially if you're anybody who eats any processed foods, even if it's bread, for instance. There actually tends to be a lot of sodium in packaged bread, surprisingly. Anything else that we want to look at?
Somebody wrote portion size, i.e. how many servings it is.
Yes, so that's actually where we want to start. We want to start with the serving size. So thank you for saying that. And the serving size is at the top of the nutrition facts label. And then we want to check the calories per serving. So that's really right underneath. So I don't know if you can see this particular nutrition facts label, but it tells you that there's 8 servings per container. Each serving size is 2/3 of a cup. And let's stop there for a second. When it says that the serving size is 2/3 of a cup, are they telling you that you should only have 2/3 of a cup? What do you think?
Isn't that just a recommendation?
So it's not necessarily even, they're not telling you to do it, they're not necessarily recommending that you do it, it's just sort of like a barometer, a starting point. So you know that if you have 2/3, so for instance, say that this nutrition facts label was for, I don't know, we'll just make it up, pasta. And at that particular sitting, your individual recommendation is to have 2 servings, right? But somebody else, their individual recommendation might be to have 3, and the other person might be to have 1. It all really just depends on our height, our weight, our gender, our physical activity level. There's so many things that go into what our individual full calorie intake might be. And that information you could actually find on the USDA's website. You can pull up your individual needs. So that being said, this is just really a barometer to tell you that if you have 2/3 of a cup, then you're going to be having 230 calories. If you have 2/3 of a cup, then you'll be having 8 grams. But if you decide that you're going to be having 1/3 of a cup, then you would want to divide this by 3. And then you would get the amount that you would need, the amount of calories you'd be taking in. So that being said, we want to limit certain items, as we were discussing before. So what items might we want to limit? So somebody mentioned fat grams, that they will be looking for the fat grams. So, and as I was saying, you might want to limit that category because things that are high in fat grams end up being high in calories. We want to limit our total saturated fat. So this particular example, for whatever this item is, it has 1 gram of saturated fat. And then if you go over to percent daily value, it tells you that that's 5% of the daily value. That being said, the daily value is actually based on a 2,000 calorie diet, but you have to take into consideration that not everyone even needs 2,000 calories. And it really just depends on the person. It's just for the average individual. And there may not be as many of the average individual. It just might be that there's such a high range. So one individual might need 3,000 calories a day, and that person might be a specific gender with lots of muscle. They might be very active. They might be very tall. So that, taking that into consideration, and then somebody else might be older. They might be another gender. They might have very low muscle tone, and they might not be very active. So taking all that into consideration, that individual may only need like 1,500 or 1,600 calories per day. So we want to think about that, what that percent daily value is. So if your needs were less than 2,000 calories per day, and this is based on a 2,000 calorie diet, would that percent daily value that you took in by eating 2/3 of a cup of this item increase or decrease?
What was the serving size in the first place?
2/3 of a cup. So if you had 2/3 of a cup, then, and your needs were less than 2,000 calories, then we would say, we would guess that your percent daily value might be a little bit higher that you've consumed, that you've taken in. So probably about maybe closer to 8% or 10% if you ate 2/3 of a cup of this item. Does that make sense to everybody? Does anyone have any questions about that?
Somebody wrote to me saying that it's really important to know like your calorie burning rate, like if you've got a high metabolism, low metabolism, what your exercise is, so that you can personally figure out your own plan, right? Because it's going to be different for every person.
Yeah, and that is really important. But that being like, it's just to have, to know what your personal needs are is very important. But then, yeah, I don't want you to drive yourselves crazy. Just have an idea that like if your calorie needs are so much lower than what this nutrition facts label is based on, which is 2,000 calories per day. That's what the serving sizes are based on. That's what the percent daily values are based on. Just to have an idea in your minds that if you're somebody who needs like 1,600 calories and you eat this full serving size, that the percent of the full amount that you should eat of that particular nutrition area would actually increase. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
We're getting a couple of thumbs up. We have
Okay.
a couple of questions. The first one, when you were alluding to like what matters, calories, somebody wrote calories matter, like, you know, what's important. And then based on the calories, because you did talk about calories, someone else wrote, do you have a preferred calorie tracker, like an app or a type of brand of a weight for and food scales? Like you could weigh yourself, like some scales, they do the breakdown of your body mass and stuff. And then having a food scale to like help you measure out things if you're not good at eyeballing things, you know, when they say like, oh, this many grams of blueberries or, you know, this much broccoli.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, you like it would be great to, if you're going to be measuring, to use like those measuring cups. Like if they say to have 2/3 of a cup of blueberries, then you could get a measuring cup that has, you know, that's 1/3, and you measure that twice. In terms of weight, like ounces, there are different ways, and we could talk about this in another class, to have a better idea of your portion sizes. Like for instance, the palm of your hand is like one way that we can sort of measure how much protein would be one serving, for instance. But we can go into detail about that in another class. But I don't want you to drive yourselves crazy. It's just good to have like an idea. I don't want you having to spend your life weighing food. It's just try and just have an idea of the amount of calories that you need per day to maintain your weight, and then look at those nutrition facts labels and know for yourself, am I going, way above this, or do I still have a lot more space in my day to eat the other things that I might eat? Any questions about that? And no, I don't have any, you did ask that question, any specific app there. Oh, pretty good, especially that USDA one. I'm pretty sure if you go to USDA.gov, they will have a link to something called Super Tracker. I think that should be there still. And you put in your height, in your weight, in your activity level, your gender, and they'll give you a pretty good idea of how many calories you should be having, about more or less.
Thank you so much. That answers a lot of our questions.
Yeah. So we want to look at the sodium, as we said, and something that I really, really, really like you to look at, that you really need to focus on limiting is that sugar category. So we go down and we see total sugars in this particular item. It says there's 12 grams of total sugars. And right underneath that, it says includes 10 grams of added sugars. What does that mean? Does that mean, do we add those two things together to know how many sugars there are in this particular item? Or what else might it be telling us? All right, so I'll answer. So what it's telling us is that no, we don't need to add those two items together. It's a total of 12 grams of sugar, but 10 of those 12 grams were added to this particular item. So they actually took sugar of one kind or another and added it to the item so that it will be sweet. And so that would mean only 2 of those grams of sugar were from natural sugar. I don't know what this item is, but let's just say it's tomato soup. So yes, something like tomatoes have natural sugar, but they don't necessarily have 12 grams of sugar for 2/3 of a cup. Maybe they have 2 grams of sugar for 2/3 of a cup, and then they're adding another 10 grams to make the soup taste good. Does anyone have any questions around that?
Yes, somebody asked what are better sweeteners. So I think they might be asking like natural sweeteners, right? Like things that we could add. Like fruit is naturally sweet, right? So if we would put some raspberries in something or some strawberries in something, that would sweeten something naturally, right? Because it has the natural sugars in the fruit itself. So, and are there any natural sweeteners? Like somebody said stevia, but I'm not sure.
So that is a lower calorie sweetener. And something else that you just may want to think about instead of adding more sweetness to something is how, the same way with, instead of using more salt, we might want to think about what other herbs and spices that we can use to bring out the flavor of something. We might want to think about what herbs and spices we can use to bring out the flavor and the natural sweetness of something. So I'll give you a good example. I find, and I know through conversation that there's so many other people who agree, when I add cinnamon to something, like oatmeal or an apple, I find that I know I'm not adding more sugar, but for some reason, those items taste so much sweeter to me. So maybe we want to think about what else can I add instead of adding more sugar? What do you think? Okay. So we talked a lot about the things that we want to limit. There are certain things that we want to make sure that we get enough of, right? We want to make sure we're taking in enough fiber, for instance. So so this particular item says it has 4 grams of fiber per 2/3 of a cup, and based on a 2,000 calorie diet, it's 14% of the daily value. So that's actually, so 25% or less is considered low, and 20% or more is considered high. So this is somewhere in between. If you have 2/3 of a cup, you're getting 14%. It's not low, it's not high, it's somewhere in between. So, and on this label that I have actually right here, it's easier to do the math on this one, it says that there's 7 grams of fiber for 1.5 cups, and that will be, in this particular case, 25% of the daily needs. That means if you just have 1.5 cups of this particular item, which is soup in this scenario, you've already had 1/4 of the amount of fiber that you need per day. So fiber is really, really important in our diet. Anyone remember why? So it helps with our digestion. Again, it helps us to feel full and to stay full. It does this by it slowly digests, so it slows the emptying of your stomach, and so therefore you stay full for a longer period of time because it takes a longer time to break down. It also works by reducing the instance of your blood sugar spiking, and when your blood sugar spikes, you feel hungrier faster. So when you have fiber in combination with something that's high in fiber, or adding something that's high in fiber to a dish, you're reducing blood sugar, the instance of blood sugar spikes.
So we had a question about this. What other foods do this? And does cantaloupe like make you full, or like drinking a glass of water a half an hour before you eat? Like, are those other strategies of not overeating?
It's certain strategies, but as we were talking about, grains are things that are whole grains, I should say, are things that are really high in fiber. So all the grains that we were talking about today, along with whole wheat bread, oatmeal, but not instant oats. It would either be quick oats or the ones that take a long time to, the full time to make. All these types of items, whole grains, are very high in fiber. Nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables in general. All these items are very high in fiber, and they have this effect. So other things that we want to make sure we're getting enough of include vitamin D, which you'll see at the bottom of the label, calcium, iron, potassium, all those vitamins and minerals, and you'll see all those daily values right next to those vitamins and minerals, and you can look at them the same way that we looked at the other % daily values, keeping in mind that if your calorie intake is supposed to be a little bit lower than those, and you're eating that same amount of that it says in the serving size, then you've actually, you've eaten a little bit more of your daily value. So sometimes you're better, it's great that you've eaten more than your daily value for something like a vitamin or mineral or the things that you should get enough of. In other cases, you want to be careful when the percent daily value has increased based on your own calorie needs. Any other questions?
You've been really informative. Wow, the hour has just flown by. It's 3:03.
Yeah.
Where did the time go?
I know. I was
in person, to eat your beautiful food. It looks so good, the food in the skillet right there.
Yeah, I wish you could try it, but maybe eventually I'll prepare it in front of everybody in person.
So do we have a minute to discuss February and if there's any choices that you want to put forward to people?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
You have a moment to discuss our February 28th. Like, we want everybody to reserve the date, February 28th at 1 o'clock. And is there anything that you wanted to run by anybody, like before we select what you're going to talk about?
Yeah, if you have any specific topics that you might want me to discuss, maybe portion sizes. I don't really do that one as often because I don't like people to feel too constrained, but it actually is a great topic and gives people a great idea. So maybe we can talk about portion size next time if everybody would be interested.
Okay, maybe a portion size with like an easy snack recipe or something so that we get the best of both worlds.
Oh yeah, we'll always prepare a recipe. Yes.
That would be lovely. Yes, we love the cooking demos, especially in person, but even on Zoom, it's great. I want to thank you for your time, your attention, your energy, and your passion. Like, we can really tell that you love helping people get like the most out of their food. And I think that's so important for all of us. Like, if you're going to eat something, prepare it well, prepare it awesomely so that you get the best amount of nutrients. Like, there's so many times that I've like overcook something and then like the nutrients are not there because I didn't set a timer or something. So like being mindful and consciousness and present when we cook is so important, and you bring all that to the table and more. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything else that anybody else wants to say? You can unmute now. We have like a couple minutes to ask questions or make comments.
What is the right way to cook broccoli? I just boil broccoli and, I think I tend to cook it too tender. I know restaurants make it al dente or a little firm. So I know you should probably steam it, but I boil mine with a little salt and cold water.
Yeah, I usually I steam it with water. And today I fried it.
Yeah.
Instances I end up with broccoli that's nice and firm, nice and crisp, and so vibrant.
Crispy, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, creature of habit. I boil it.
My boiling is that I've learned I like the crispiness, the crunchiness of broccoli, but it's not overcooked. But also, I take into consideration that if I boil it, I'm losing a lot of vitamins and minerals in the water, and that hurts my heart. The vitamins and minerals. If I'm gonna eat a piece of broccoli, I want to know that I'm getting all the vitamins and minerals that I get.
Well, yeah, you don't see people drinking the broccoli water after they
no.
boil it. Some people do drink the water after they boil things, so at least the nutrients are consumed. But somebody asked, can you bake broccoli? That's a good question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That is another thing that I do. Sorry, yes. Baking broccoli is a great idea. Again, just don't overcook it. It's really, the closer to doesn't have to be raw, but the closer it's more firm state, the better off you are.
You can use the boiled water when it cools off. I understand from boiling the broccoli to water the plants, water your plants.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't drink it. I mean, probably people do, and I don't like the taste of it. I'd rather eat the vegetable.
Yeah.
See, I thought you could eat as many vegetables as you wanted. Vegetables are healthy. Fruits have, natural sugars. You're not adding any sugars. I guess you have to be careful if you have diabetes or some other condition, but
Yeah, I mean,
you could
kind
eat
of
as
like
much as you want.
when, it's kind of like one of those, you should have more of these and limit these. I would say that when they tell you that you need 3 cups of vegetables per day, they're kind of telling you that you need at least 3 cups of vegetables per day. But when they tell you that you should only have about 2 to 3 fruits per day, they're telling you don't have more than 2 to 3 fruits per day. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Like a banana, an apple,
Yeah, those
an
things are
orange.
and sugar is completely fine if you're to and you want, as long as you're sticking to the proper amounts of servings of it per day. Like I've heard of people that eat 4 and 5 bananas a day, and that's, that's not a great idea for most people. So there's just a barometer out there for
Get the plunger.
people, they should be having of something, and they figure since it's a fruit, it's fine, but it's not always the best idea.
Thank you.
I know I don't eat enough vegetables a day. I mean, I throw in some salad with my sandwich, and also at dinner time. But I don't have enough mixture like broccoli and beans and beets and whatever other vegetables there are, Swiss chard and
You have self-awareness,
kale and
maybe something that you want
collards.
to do into your week.
How
All right,
much do we?
thank you.
Oh. Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, these are all good ideas to infuse more
Yeah.
vegetables and fruits. We can talk about that at the next session, maybe creative ways of like incorporating it into our day, like carrying fun snack containers. Because if the snack is in a nice container, you might want to eat it better. Who knows? There's all sorts of tips and tricks that you could infuse. I know my friend has a beautiful water bottle, so she'll want to drink more water from it because it's pretty. So, all right. Well, I want to thank everybody. It's 3:10. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So be well, stay well. We will see you all on the 28th, which is February, Tuesday at 1 o'clock.
Thank you so much, everyone. Then.
Be well, stay well.